Today's podcast is brought to you by Sprizzy. Looking to skyrocket your YouTube channel's growth? Meet Sprizzy, your video's ultimate matchmaker. Their tailored ad campaigns connect your content with viewers who are already looking for videos like yours. With Sprizzy, you're not just getting views, you're gaining subscribers who are genuinely interested in what you create. Are you ready to boost your reach? Visit Sprizzy.com today and let's launch your channel to new heights. Sprizzy, the smarter way to promote your YouTube channel. Peter, was this your first Roger Moore film?
It is indeed. It is indeed. It is.
Wow.
In a lot of ways.
There's so many. That's why my goal for this year is to watch all of James Bond, because every time I watch one of them, I enjoy it, whether the movie sucks or not. And what I figure is, if it sucks, I'm going to talk to you anyway.
In some ways, the ones that suck are the most fun to talk about.
Are you alluding to what's coming next?
I don't think this movie sucks.
I thought it was entertaining. I enjoyed
It's very entertaining. I think the plot sucks. I won't hide that. Well, everyone, this is Why Wasn't It Better? And I am your host, Patrick Darms.
And I'm your co-host, Anton Paras.
Joining us is a return guest. He has been on, I think this is probably your 10th appearance, 9th or 10th appearance, Pete. And it is your fourth Bond movie, because you were on for No Time to Die.
Yep. You only live twice.
Diamonds Are Forever. And now this.
I have to see so many of them. So hopefully next year, through 2025 and the multiple seasons that will come, I will make it a mission to watch all of the Bond movies next year.
You're a lucky man, because I wish I could go back and watch all of them for the first time.
Yeah, it's been quite the experience, I will say. So I'm honored that you keep having me back here to talk about them.
Do you feel a vibe after you watch Bond films? Like there's a bit of pickup in your step?
Yeah, actually, honestly.
Yeah,
I
I think it's an effect after seeing any Bond film.
I always find that I'll go to work and I always just make sure I know where the exits are, just in case.
About Octopussy, which is the 13th official James Bond film. It is Roger Moore's 6th. He was 55 when this movie was released, and he looks it. He was getting up there.
I didn't want to sound disrespectful.
Look, it is going to be a flaw when we talk about A View to a Kill. Of like, you're like, man, he stayed a little too long.
I was going to say too, even if he looked a little older here, when you see A View to a Kill, that's a AARP Bond.
Are you aware that he got a facelift between this film and A View to a Kill?
Didn't need it. Such
what
a
was the
man.
year differential? This was 83, right?
That was 85.
Only 2 years. Wow.
Pete, you're going to love that one. Christopher Walken is the bad guy.
I love Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
It is such a fun Bond film.
It's so much fun.
This is actually really exciting because I do get to experience all of these for the first time. That's why I'm
jealous. I really am.
I want to be so neutral. I don't want to be influenced. I want to watch this movie and then observe the criticism. I don't even look at the IMDb, nothing. When you're like, Pete, this is the movie, I do my best to put on blinders and just watch the movie. And the other day, I literally had to text you.
Well, I don't spoil anything for you. I will occasionally warn you, like with Diamonds Are Forever. I was like, I don't think you're ready for how crazy this movie is.
I've seen a lot of bad movies, man. Remember, I am a horror fan. The lowest I've ever been is 3.2, and I had to turn it off.
That's on IMDb.
Yeah,
that's pretty low.
It wasn't good.
There's some pretty bad horror.
Low, Anton.
There's a Ginger Dead Man. What was it? Gary Busey as a evil gingerbread man.
Gingerbread man. That seems like Christmas themed horror.
I don't know if it was Christmas themed, but it was Gary Busey as this gingerbread man that came to life. Pretty terrifying.
That's kind of like the Jack Frost murder movies. Remember they like came out, there was like a Disney Jack Frost and there was like a killer Jack Frost that came out at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, it was in the 90s, right?
One of my favorites.
Which one?
It was it Kevin Costner played the snowman?
All of them.
I'm pretty sure it was Kevin Costner was the voice of the snowman.
That had to have been after Waterworld, right? He would have never made something like that before Waterworld.
Oh yeah, this was post Waterworld.
Pete, you've seen Waterworld, right? You've heard of it though.
I don't think I've heard good things.
Very famous, very famous Universal.
Flop.
Well, also attraction now, not even a ride.
A great theme park attraction.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Universal in years, actually.
Last time's a great one.
It's a fun show. There's a reason why they still do it.
Yeah.
All right.
The movie's kind of fun too.
Yeah.
This is the cool part about having a daughter, because I know one day we'll end up in the Harry Potter world.
Yeah, I was about to say don't show her Waterworld. There's no reason.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, baby, we're on a budget this year.
No. We can't go to Harry Potter, but we can go to Waterworld. We can go back in time and visit the Miami Vice stunt spectacular.
I want to.
Oh.
I want to take. I want to take our kid to Dollywood. I think that's family friendly.
Is
Probably.
that the one in Tennessee?
Yeah, it's in
Yeah.
Pigeon Ford. Yeah.
That'll probably be fun. Why not?
Yeah. Well, today's film, as I mentioned, is Octopussy. Anton, would you like to intro this for us?
Yeah. Should it get bleeped every time we say it?
I don't
Octa
think
beep.
so.
Like,
But before I forget,
The entire show.
in case the listeners are interested, you can pick up a copy of Marvel Comics edition of Octopussy, back when Marvel Comics had a collaboration with the James Bond series.
good times.
It only lasted 2 films, but
That's all they needed.
So,
apparently.
Octopussy. James Bond is assigned to solve the murder of Agent 009, killed in East Germany clutching a fake Fabergé egg while dressed as a clown. The trail leads to India, where an enigmatic woman operates a smuggling ring under the cover of a traveling circus. However, her real motives prove to be far more sinister, and Bond uncovers a plot to blow up a U.S. Air Force base in West Germany. Released on June 6, 1983 by Eon Productions and United Artists, directed by John Glenn, screenplay by George MacDonald Fraser, Richard Maybaum, and Michael G. Wilson, based on the short story collection by Ian Fleming. Starring Roger Moore, Maud Adams, Louis Jordan, Christina Wayborn, Stephen Burkhoff, Kabir Bedi, and Vijay Armitage. With a budget of $27.5 million, so $87 million adjusted for inflation, with a box office of $187 million, so $591 million adjusted for inflation. So wanted to now go to our next segment, which is, of course, why was this movie chosen? And I wanted to offer that up to Pete. Why did you want to talk about Octopussy?
As some of the listeners probably know, I'm seeing most of the Bond movies. Actually, outside of Pierce Brosnan, I think I've seen everything from Pierce Brosnan forward. And I've seen some other ones trickled in there. So I'm seeing a lot of these movies for the first time, and this is my first Roger Moore movie. And I enjoyed it. I did. So I feel connected to the Bond franchise. Next year, hopefully at the end of 2025, I'll be able to send you something about an analysis of who I think the best Bond is.
Very nice.
I love the enthusiasm. 1983, Anton, was a unique year for James Bond. Octopussy was released in June. I mentioned it. This is the 13th official film in the Eon series. And then later that year, in October, audiences were treated to a rival Bond film, Never Say Never Again, starring the one and only Sean Connery.
Whoa, we talked about that before. Listen to that
Yeah.
episode, folks.
This is a film that we covered. It is, due to a very bizarre legal case, it was a unofficial remake of Thunderball. And for more details on that, you can listen to our Thunderball episode as well. So we had a battle of the Bonds. It would prove to be a bit underwhelming because they were originally going to be more or less released on the same weekend or right around the same time. But Never Say Never Again experienced some delays during its production, and it got pushed back to October. Of the two, Octopussy actually ended up being the higher grossing film. This is one of my favorite background movies in the series, Anton. I can't say that it is one of my favorite movies in the series, but I enjoy putting this one on when I'm like cooking or cleaning the house. I find this movie to be very comforting.
Yeah, it's like when I put on Friday After Next in the background.
Right.
Not my
Same
favorite
thing.
of this. Not my favorite of the series, but you know, it's nice to have it on.
It's good background music. Okay. I think that's reasonable.
Is this a movie that you're familiar with, Anton? I know you're a Bond fan as well, but have you seen this one a lot?
This is one that I've seen pretty consistently, and I will say it has always been one of the funnier Bond films for more than one reason. But at the same time, it's so hard not to remember it for multiple reasons. But the title of it is also just hilarious in pop culture. I will, as listeners know, I love The Simpsons, and they reference Octopussy a lot.
I have a very distinct childhood memory of after I had been introduced to Bond by my dad, asking him about this movie because I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and I didn't know really anything at that age, but I knew enough to know, I'm like, isn't that a bad word? Like,
Yeah,
Are they aiming for shock value? Because I feel like
but it was rated PG, so I was also confused by that. So I was like, I don't know. How does that work?
How are you gonna get away with this one?
Right. So, production history of this film, unless either of you have anything to add before we really get into this.
No, we're gonna release a family-friendly version of this episode where we bleep the second half of Octopussy.
It's gonna be like sending Morse code.
You can also choose, if you wish, to pronounce it the way Kamal Khan frequently pronounces the name in this movie. Octopussy. Octopussy.
I feel like they knew. They definitely knew.
Oh yeah,
He has a very specific a way of speaking.
Kamal Khan.
Spend the money quickly, Mr. Bond.
this is very also heavy in Venture Brothers. This film, a lot of
Yes.
Bond is, but this film
Yes.
is also very much in Venture Brothers.
Kamal Khan, an exiled Afghan prince played by French actor Louis Jourdan. Because why not?
Does not look like he's Afghan,
No,
Doesn't at all.
like at all.
no. That's something I always miss the first, 10 times that I've seen this movie. It's a real quick throwaway line, but he is an exiled Afghan prince.
Do we know
living in
why
India.
he's exiled?
No, they don't.
So he's just a French guy that's playing an Afghan guy playing mahjong.
If you want to get into the geopolitics of this film, which I'm very positive the screenwriters didn't when they were writing this crap down, he is an exiled Afghan prince who is collaborating with a Soviet general, which in 1983 would have been very bizarre.
Yeah.
The
Well,
politics of that is
Soviets-
mind-boggling.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Soviets were neck deep in their Afghan war at that time. But like I said, I don't think the screenwriters considered this at all when they wrote this film.
I almost just said a really R-rated line,
You can.
PG
and
and
he was neck deep in Octopussy.
Was he? I have questions
No.
about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have questions about his relationship with Magda. It's like, who does she work for? Because it's not clear in the film.
I'm not sure.
We'll talk about it.
Let's get to the
Blofeld.
action.
Yeah.
Let's get to the action.
Well, they introduce Octopussy like she's a Blofeld type
Like
of
she's
character.
Blofeld,
which is,
yeah.
like, still not sure why, but production history of this film. In our previous episode, For Your Eyes Only, Anton, we talked about how United Artists went belly up after the colossal failure that was Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate. This was around 1980, 1981. But another Bond movie was greenlit following For Your Eyes Only. Pete, that was the previous Bond film that came out in 1981. Now, around the time of that film's release, United Artists was acquired by MGM. So the studio was saved from bankruptcy. George MacDonald Fraser was hired by Eon to write a screenplay based on short stories from Ian Fleming's posthumous collection called Octopussy and the Living Daylights. It was his idea for the film's plot to be primarily set in India. So for anyone wondering who is not familiar, the reason why this film has such a bizarre title is it's from Ian Fleming. The first draft of the screenplay was delivered in mid-1981. Michael Wilson and Richard Maybaum went on to rework the script. It was rewritten to focus on jewelry smuggling after a scandal in the Soviet Union involving General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev's son-in-law, in which the Moscow State Circus was being used to smuggle jewelry. Did either of you notice Brezhnev is a character in this film? Did you guys notice?
In the like the likeness, right?
Yeah.
In the among the council.
Yeah, they must have
that is
hired
so-
a Brezhnev impersonator.
Was it Robin Williams?
I saw on Twitter it looks like he's played by Dan Hedaya.
Deep cut. Damn.
The dad from
Yeah.
Clueless.
Yeah. He was also
I
in
can see Pete frantically googling this.
I'm
was
like,
like,
who is this guy?
He's been in a lot of movies. Anyway,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
yeah.
He's
The film's
84.
title, I read this. It's taken from a Fleming short story. But the plot of this film is mostly original. However, it does have a scene adapted from a Fleming short story called The Property of a Lady.
Oh.
Yes. Events of the short story Octopussy from part of the title character's background are recounted by her in the film. I'll touch on that a little bit later. Like I mentioned, they don't really use a lot of the plot. However, the events simply related by Bond is the family backstory for one of the main characters. More on that later. The scene at Sotheby's auction house, however, that is from The Property of a Lady. And Kamal Khan's reaction following the backgammon game is taken from the novel Moonraker. That line that he says to Bond, "Spend the money quickly, Mr. Bond," that is from Moonraker, said by the character Drax. Following For Your Eyes Only, Roger Moore had intended to retire from the role. He was 53 at the time. Now, given his reluctance to return, the producers engaged in a semi-public quest for the next Bond, with Timothy Dalton and Lewis Collins being suggested as a replacement. Screen tests were carried out with Michael Billington, Oliver Tobias, and American actor James Brolin. Yes, the father of Josh Brolin and future husband of Barbra Streisand. Some of these screen tests can be found on YouTube, including Brolin's. If you're ever curious, you can check it out.
James Brolin's is pretty interesting, just because it's almost like seeing Thanos run around as Bond.
Yeah, it's
in the MCU too.
It is strange to watch, Anton. Like,
It just didn't fit, but I think they
No.
knew it.
they know it, yeah. But it really does seem like more was done, and this is what got him back, though. When they found out that Never Say Never Again, the rival film, was being made, and that it was going to be released the same year with Sean Connery in the role, United Artists put a lot of pressure on the producers to get more back. They did not want to gamble at the box office with a new actor, so Cubby Broccoli convinced Moore to return. Moore got a really nice raise. He was paid $5.2 million, up from $4.6 that he earned for Your Eyes Only. So pretty good. And that's pretty good in today's money, let alone the early 80s.
That was 2 years between the movies.
Yeah,
Not a bad payday.
not a bad payday.
Mhm.
Several actresses were linked with the role of Octopussy before Maude Adams won the part. Barbara Carrera said that she turned down the role to appear as Fatima Blush in Never Say Never Again, saying that she, quote, preferred to work with the real James Bond. Persis Kambata, remember her from Star Trek The Motion Picture, Anton?
Yes, the name is cannot be forgotten.
Very
Cannot
unique.
be forgotten. She was considered for the role. Kathleen Turner was also considered for the role. It seems like when they were writing the film, they weren't really sure if they wanted the character to be Indian or not, because they were considering white actresses and, you know, Indian actresses as well. Originally in the script, the part was written for a character to be from an Indian family, but the plot line about Maude Adams and her British father was later used instead. Thank goodness they didn't try to put her in dark skin makeup. They would never do that in the 2000s in a Daniel Craig film with an actress. Never.
Tropic Thunder.
They did that in Quantum of Solace. That's why I'm saying that. Most people don't know that, though. Vijay Amritraj, a popular Indian professional tennis player whom Broccoli met while watching the championships at Wimbledon, was cast. He was pretty much the most famous person in India at the time. That's my understanding, is like why they went for him. Anton, I'm monopolizing this. I apologize.
Well, finish it off.
Are you sure? All
Yeah,
right.
finish it up. There's only
Sometimes I think I talk too much.
There's 6 bullets left.
All right, fair enough. Filming began in West Berlin in August 1982. In September, the production moved to Rajasthan, India. The Monsoon Palace served as the exterior of Kamal Khan's palace, with scenes set at Octopussy's palace were filmed at the Lake Palace and Jag Mandir. Shooting in India ended up being a huge personal moment for Roger Moore. Shocked by the poverty that he saw, he ended up dedicating a huge amount of the rest of his life to UNICEF charity work. Yeah.
Real gentleman.
He really was. The East German rail race scenes were not shot in East Germany, surprisingly. They were shot in Peterborough, England, while the studio work was performed at Pinewood, of course, Anton, at the 007 stage. Filming wrapped in January of 83. After missing the opportunity to score For Your Eyes Only for tax issues, composer John Barry returned to score his 9th film in the series. This ended up with a slightly smaller budget than For Your Eyes Only. Critically, it fared a lot worse than its predecessor. This only has a 42% Rotten Tomatoes score, so not too good. And that is the production history for Octopussy. Now let's talk why wasn't it better? The good stuff here. Number one, I think we can start with the tone. Anton, you can answer this question because Pete's only seen one Roger Moore. I'm not saying this is the best Roger Moore film. I'm not saying it's the second best or the third or maybe the fourth or the fifth. But to me, this has always been the most Roger Moore film.
That's a really, really on-the-nose statement. And for anyone that's a fan of Bond, can't help but agree. Because Roger Moore definitely isn't afraid to dive into the humor a bit, almost onto the campy. Is it fair to say this one maybe felt a little bit full-on campy?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
It's not his campiest. That has to be Moonraker, right?
I don't know, A View to a Kill.
Moonraker with the whole Venice part.
That was, oh man. Double take pigeon.
Yeah,
Is that
there's a pigeon that does a double take in one of the movies, Pete.
is this my next assignment?
You have to see Moonraker. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think this is the most representative film of Moore's filmography because it has some of the best Roger Moore moments and some of the worst. I find the tone of this film to be all over the place. The first half, I think, is far goofier than the second half.
Can agree with that.
I always think of what are the moments that bring heart to any of these Bond films, and for this one, in comparison to the rest of the Roger Moore films, it wasn't around a romantic relationship that really tugged on your heartstrings. So that tone is also not as grounded into Bond's romantic life. I think if this was actually you feel the most sad when VJ gets got. He got.
Yeah.
I was very upset about that. And the method of killing VJ is still up for debate.
Awful. What an
It's terrible.
awful way
Terrible.
to die.
I'm so glad
Hugh says that line. He was alive when I found him. You're like, oh.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then
Ugh.
what did he say? What did he say? Khan's men?
Yeah.
And then he died. Clever
I'm glad-
timing, but sorry, VJ.
All I'm saying is I'm glad that they did away with that method of execution. back
Yo-yo
in-
saw?
Yeah, it was I think Texas was the last state to do it, but
Well, that's my point about the tone, right? You have super serious moments in the film like that. And then, unfortunately, this film has some of the lowest moments in not just the Roger Moore era, but the entire Bond series. I mean, there's some just god-awful slapstick material. It starts early.
Can we
when
delve into some specifics?
Yeah, it starts early when Bond arrives in Delhi. It's a real weird meta moment. VJ is playing the Bond theme on a recorder.
Yeah.
yeah.
That was, and like, I understand they try to reach to does no one else on the planet know the Bond theme or know who James Bond is?
It's not clear.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give him that one.
It's the second time to my knowledge that the series has broken the fourth wall. The first being on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Anton, you remember.
You hear the music playing.
No. When Bond says to the camera, this never happened to the other fellow.
Oh, right.
Right. And this is like that, and it's just awkward. And when I was watching this with my wife,
Yeah.
she was confused. She's like, "Wait, is that his music in the movie?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know."
You need to patch the wall back up, spackle it, and let's just not talk about it again. Because they have they done it since this movie again?
Not to my knowledge.
Because I don't think not once in the Daniel Craig movies have they done it.
No, I mean, I like to think I know the Bond series as well as anyone, and I don't think this has happened since.
But I could see why. It wasn't. It was very odd for me to see that.
And if anyone who's listening and not watching, Pete is just voraciously taking notes.
I am indeed. I have some good notes. I'm also, you're prompting me to add some more items to my rating at the end, and I appreciate that. I do. You're helping me flesh that out further. I'm going to put a lot on this one.
I try. Back to the tone of Octopussy. We're still in India, early in the film. I have written down the Tuk Tuk chase might as well be filmed at the Indian Pavilion in Epcot.
Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
can we talk about that line?
Which one?
Can we
Which
talk?
one?
Can we when he goes?
There's several.
He's like, I think this is a work event, and he goes, no problem. This is a company car, and then the tuk tuk does a wheelie. That has to be one of the best scenes in the movie.
It's great.
It has to be one of the best scenes in film.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah. I agree
I
with
love
that.
it.
Luis Toro right off the plane. It's
Yeah.
when I started watching it, I was like, okay, this is where we're going. I could get on board with this. I could.
and that's the fun energy of Bond films like this. Like, as campy as we can say it is, however the tone may be all over the place, it's entertaining. It's fun, and
Yeah.
that is very much Roger Moore's Bond.
I can't help but like it. Like it, I understand
He
it if
does.
you wanted to criticize it. Like the Tuk Tuk chase, it is a murderer's row of Indian stereotypes. Like it's just one after the other. It's absolutely ludicrous. It's a relic of its time. You would never see anything like it now.
No,
But
no
it is
way.
entertaining.
It is entertaining, and you also have to. And I always think I would say like the coolest part of these movies is you look at how they frame the events. Right, Bond is always about something that's super high stakes, something that's going to basically either result in the world or not. I have to give it credit, even though there's stereotypes. It was a product of its time, right, and that stuff was acceptable, and you have to view it as a piece of culture.
They clearly watched Raiders of the Lost Ark and said, like, let's put something like this in the next film. But I'm glad you talked about the pre-title sequence, Pete. I was like, oh, what a coincidence. You're a Toro too.
Yeah, Luis Toro, spectacular. And then his karate chop, he just used the karate chop to on the back of his shoulder.
Very
That scene's
Austin
just like-
Powers.
Yeah.
Judo. Chop.
I was just like, oh, it must have been Q's new gadget. Robot arm.
Before I forget, because I don't think I wrote this down, he pulls up in a drop top Land Rover.
He definitely sticks
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, it's awesome.
He definitely sticks out a little
I've never
bit.
seen one of those. A drop top
Well,
Land Rover like that?
And his disguise to fit in as a general in what I assume to be Cuba was just putting on a mustache.
Oh, you think that's
Yeah.
Cuba?
Yeah,
Well,
I
that
thought
was
so.
that was supposedly Fidel, wasn't it?
I've got questions about that.
Because I figured that's why I said to you, I was like, wow, it's cool to see like the global events. Like that was definitely Fidel at the beginning, wasn't it?
I thought it was a nod to Argentina
Oh, I could see that as well.
because the Falklands War had
yeah.
just happened the year before. That's
I-
what I thought.
I think both can fit in just because of the, communism. But
Fair.
But yeah, you're right. It's not clear what country that is because it's weird. It's Latin America, but it's like very clearly filmed at like an English racehorse.
yeah,
They did put some palm trees in the background though. Give them credit for
it's
that.
very ambiguous.
They did
Toro
the best they
sounds like a
could.
load of bull.
That's what right when I was like, okay, this movie's not going to take itself too seriously.
Oh
This
no!
is the type of
Oh no!
this is the type of Bond it's going to be, and I was on board with that. I knew what I was getting into, and I was okay with it.
It doesn't take itself seriously except when it does, and I do think it's a flaw though because it's there's moments where it's like super serious.
I feel like the second half of the movie. Do you want me to talk about this now, or should we wait?
Well, I mean, I'm going to mention it a couple of times. The second half is way more serious than the
It's
first.
a spy movie,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
The second
Very.
half is the spy movie, and I feel like it would have been better if they took the knee slappy moments and trickled them in instead of made it like knee slap in the first half of the movie, and then let's just be a really cool spy movie at the end, which is some weird deaths. If you think about it.
Yeah. I think it hit rock bottom for me during the safari sequence.
Not ideal.
All the animals and
I'm going to rattle these off.
Yeah.
We get Bond doing the dead body gag. Mwah! It's clearly not Roger Moore's voice.
pretty bad ADR.
Speaking of bad ADR, when he tells the tiger to sit,
No.
Which is a reference to a thing at the time. Now it's very dated.
what was it a reference to?
There was this really famous British lady on TV. She was like the Caesar Milan of the 80s. And that was how
What?
she would say sit on the show. Right? See what I
Really?
mean? So it's just a very dated reference.
That is very okay. At least there's an explanation for that because I was
Huh.
I always like wondered. I'm like, what are they doing here?
Weird.
He tells the snake to hiss off.
Odd.
My personal favorite is when he runs into the hilariously fake-looking wall of spider webs that looked like it was purchased at a Halloween store for 65 cents.
It was clear where the money was spent.
Yeah. Also, tarantulas are ground-dwelling spiders. They don't weave webs.
They stay in holes,
They do.
right?
Leave him
'Cause,
alone, Pat.
That's right.
Yeah, they don't weave webs. And last but not least, worst moment in the film and one of the worst moments in the series, the Tarzan yell. It's
That's a polarizing moment for Bond fans. I think you're either on one side of you hate it or you fully embrace the campiness of it.
look.
Where
if
do you
you
sit, Pat?
if you like it, you like it. To me, it's dumb. It doesn't add anything to the story. Like you don't have to do that. You don't have to.
I don't think it added anything to the movie for me.
Definitely didn't.
Especially now, if you're watching it with people like I don't know my nieces who are watching this with us. It's like trying to explain it to them. Like you can't. Like we're like, well, Tarzan was a character that from the 20th century. It's just
It doesn't make sense.
no. And then because one of them inevitably asked the question, well, what is it doing in this movie? And we're like, I don't know. Anton, where do you rank it with the slide whistle and Man with the Golden Gun? Better or worse?
I think the slide whistle has to be worse because it took what should have been one of the coolest moments and made it and just like threw shit on it.
I agree.
Damn.
That whole sequence for me, the reason why I think it is rock bottom for the movie is that safari sequence could have and should have been an awesome action set piece. And every 60 seconds they're throwing some dumb gag in there that you don't need it.
Yeah, you could have cut all of that out and had him getting away and then climbing into the boat to be safe.
They seem to put Roger Moore's Bond around animals a lot. It's not the first time he's had to.
So
evade.
something
Oh, you're
that
right.
popped up. Has he ever? Obviously James Bond, and this is maybe a stupid question, but James Bond is obviously the best global super spy on the planet, right? Does he have
Oh,
like
Him
animal
and Austin
training?
Powers.
Yeah, true.
Right.
I've
Does
never
he have
seen
animal
him.
training. He
Yeah,
can ride
like-
a horse.
Like I've never seen him do that. Typically, it's like Bond, defuse this bomb. I got that. Bond, tame this tiger. I'm not calling James
He's
Bond.
tamed a tiger or two in his time.
But like when I think of James Bond, I don't think of him taming a tiger or getting away from a cobra.
He's
Well-
never done anything like this in another film.
It's just interesting.
So he goes on a safari and visits the circus in the same film.
It's an odd concept, which
It is an odd
I
concept.
presume we're gonna get to the plot too, because
We are going to get to the plot. Anton, where are you on the safari thing? You seem a little higher on it than I am. I think it's so fixable.
I think it's I think that's where I embrace the B movie quality of it, because it's just fun. I do agree it's very fixable, but as a whole, it just kind of fits into the film a bit more, just because it's so silly.
yeah, it goes. I mean, this is to your point, Pat. It's a tonal problem, right? And I didn't mind. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was ridiculous. I feel like you could have lived without that. But I didn't think it really hurt the movie.
Then we have Bond zooming the camera in on the woman's boobs in Q's lab.
Definitely necessary.
That's a real guy's guy.
Definitely
Guy.
necessary to advance the plot of the movie.
This movie repeatedly crosses the line into the land of stupidity.
Yeah. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
It does not, except
What's-
when it does. Like
I mean-
when EJ gets killed. Like that's not supposed to be a joke,
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
second half of the movie. The
right?
second half of the movie where
When Bond is trying to defuse a nuclear bomb wearing a clown suit.
What's really funny is usually you get a tonal shift, like film to film. There's always a course correction.
I
There
agree with
really
that.
wasn't a course correction going into the next film.
There's no transition.
But I think like part of that is this film still did really well at the box office.
It did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think
true.
that's the formulaic side of it. It's like, you know what? The people seem to love the comedy. Make sure Bond zooms in on more boobs.
You know
Yeah.
what? If it sells, it sells.
I almost wonder, Anton, if they thought they had gone too far with the serious material with Fear Eyes Only. Because remember, they made a course correction in that film to get away from the excess of Moonraker. And I almost wonder if they looked at that and they were like, this is too serious. We need to bring back some of the jokes.
Idea. Was this the first movie that was PG?
No, they were all
No.
rated PG.
They were all rated PG?
Yeah,
Oh,
this was
okay.
before PG-13.
Yeah, thank you,
Ah.
Temple of Doom.
Yes, they created the PG-13 rating in 1985 because of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Gremlins.
Gremlins is terrifying.
Yeah, that's a PG-rated film.
That should be NC-17.
So that's a super, super cute film.
TVMA.
Love Gremlins. Also, the tone about this film. This has to set a record for number of questionable disguises that Bond wears in a film.
Yep.
Or just disguises
Yeah.
in general. He
Yeah.
wears a lot of disguises.
If you ever play the game Hitman, you understand like how
Oh, yeah.
difficult it is to find the disguise that's so perfect. Some of these in this movie are just insane.
The Toro disguise is great. In the
It fit.
pre-title sequence, because that's just a little fake mustache. And did you catch one of my favorite gadgets in all of Bondum is him turning the hat, the flat cap hat inside out, and it just becomes a stiff military cap. It's so great.
Gadgets were the best. Trouble keeping it up? Q?
Oh, so great.
It seemed poorly timed too, because the real general appeared. Like, oh, he's right there. Huh.
And then he got away.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, paratroopers, they come down from the plane and then use the parachute. Doesn't it seem like you should prepare your soldiers for, like, you shouldn't wear, I don't know, parachutes on a truck just in case someone pulls them and you get taken off?
You would think.
Unless
I wrote that down and I was like, who trained these guys?
they have to always be ready to get on a plane, which you just keep that on you.
Or just
Someone has
leave,
to invade the Falkland Islands again. I mean,
or just leave the parachutes on the plane. This way they're already there when you get them and you don't have to carry them around. They get taken out by a truck going 40 miles an hour.
you know, Anton, one of the reasons why I thought it was Argentina is not just the Falklands connection, but I was like, there's a lot of blue-eyed people walking around. Like,
I think that's a reasonable inference. Or
That's funny. That is really funny.
I don't know why I like that line so much. Oh, he's like, oh, you're a Toro too. I texted this to you earlier, Pete. I love how Bond's just completely unfazed by getting captured. Just Doesn't
That's fine. I've been
doesn't
here
miss a
before.
beat. Still completes his mission by blowing up the warehouse.
That's
the
because he's
hangar.
Bond.
It's because he's
James.
Bond. Still keeping on the disguises, Bond wears a gorilla suit.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Absolutely hilarious.
In this order, a circus employee, the gorilla suit, the costume of a circus knife thrower, and then we get the full clown suit and makeup, all in about a half-hour span.
Where does he get that? Like,
Bit of a
is he knocking people off and hiding their bodies in
Well,
freezers?
the circus employee left his jacket lying around. Bond picks that up. Does he kill the first knife thrower, Mishka and/or Grishka?
He kills one of them, I think.
Well, he hits the other guy in the head with a cannon, which probably killed him, right?
But I think you can say
Cracked
that.
skull at the least.
keep going, guys.
I can accept the clown makeup. The other reason I don't mind the clown makeup as much, Pete, is it also comes full circle with what happened to 009 early in the film.
So I was watching that and I was like, man, I wonder if this is like an homage because it really wasn't necessary. I also don't like clowns. Like I love horror movies, but there's just a movie that I won't see, and I don't like clowns.
So the beginning of this movie freaked you out when the clown's running through the woods.
I've learned to live with them, but I won't actively seek them out. I just think there's something wrong with a grown man dressing up like a clown. It freaks me out, and that's okay, and everyone else is entitled to enjoy it. But for me, it's not my thing. So when I saw it, I was very confused, which I guess it fit like the circus, but maybe this was an homage to 009, which I don't think you know who 009 is.
Well, it certainly does come full circle because you're like, oh, this is how 009 stumbled into this mess to begin with. I don't look the clown suit thing. I can certainly understand why you want to criticize it. It's Bond using his environment. I do find it funny how his makeup is perfect
All the time.
Yeah.
But that's Bond. That's how it works.
I think the reason why I don't mind the clown suit as much is it is some of the best acting Moore has ever done. When he's trying to convince the people in the circus to believe him and he's trying to defuse the bomb, Moore completely sells it. And he's probably the only Bond actor that could have pulled that off.
While wearing a clown suit.
Yeah,
Yes.
agreed. Because again, have they done that? Like, has that been replicated in any other movie?
No,
it has not.
Now you've seen we have seen questionable outfits and disguises, but the clown takes the cake.
I think the gorilla suit's worse.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Just when he's standing there and you just see the shot of him in a gorilla suit, I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
What other highlights are Sean Connery as a Japanese man?
That's pretty bad.
I'm not going to comment on that one.
You already have. You did a whole episode with us on it.
I'm not going to comment further on that one.
Yeah, there's nothing else to say about that one. I mean, would you say Lazenby in the kilt? Not great.
Yeah, that one's not great. Did Craig have any silly disguises?
Daniel Craig was always
No.
a suave British man doing suave British man things.
I like to think he was in disguise in Casino Royale when he showed up on the beach with those short shorts.
No, that's just Bond being what Bond is.
The peak of maleness, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what Bond is, right? If you imagine a British man on a beach, where do you think his shorts are? Where Daniel Craig's are, or
I
Gus?
still think of like the full, like the it's like the striped shirt, like almost with
He just looks
then the
very
shorts.
European.
Yeah, fully clothed, but you're still at the beach.
Oh, the full bathing suit?
yeah, full bathing suit.
He wears
That's what
one
I
of
think
them in the Knives Out sequel.
Oh, okay,
Remember that?
that's right. Yeah,
The second
I
Knives
do.
Out movie. He wears like a bathing suit, I guess you would call it.
yeah.
Benoit Blanc. By the way, I look forward to that third one because I like those movies.
Same. I've enjoyed every one of them.
I do really like Moore's acting, and this is why I think the goofiness of the Indian sequences gets weirdly balanced out. Because when he gets to Germany, it turns into a Cold War thriller. Like the scene where he confronts Orlov on the train car,
Yeah,
really good acting from Moore.
yeah, it's good. It becomes a spy movie. That's what it wanted to be in the second half of the movie, and I think it was clear that there was like a turning point when it became a spy movie.
In the beginning, too, obviously the pre-title sequence, and then when he attends the auction, I love a good auction sequence.
The auction scene for me,
Yeah.
Love a good auction.
I love that. 500,000,
Property of a lady.
450. I was like,
450?
that's exactly what it is.
460?
Yeah, and that's a real auction house too, Sotheby's. It's
Yeah.
one of the major auction houses in the world, so I love to see that representation. It's where I would probably see the original graded Power 9 Magic the Gathering cards at a full-on auction.
You're saying this in a little bit of a jest, Anton, but I know you're serious because they auction some really cool stuff.
Dude,
Well,
Sotheby's is
what is-
enormous.
The
Yes.
Power 9 probably went for like
Million?
yeah, if you get like a perfectly graded set, yeah, so hard.
I don't know if they still have it, but the Sotheby's location in Manhattan, for about a year, they had one of the Aston Martins from Bond in their like lobby.
What did it go for?
There
They had it on display, and it must have sold at some point. But it was part of some display that they had going.
It's wild. Just to be
What do
able
you-
to.
Sorry, I was gonna say, what do you think the ethics is of the company if someone goes into the auction house and they have a scar on one eye, they're fully bald, and they're also petting a cat? It's like, should we be selling to that guy?
Truthfully, if he's got money, they're selling.
I went to an auction there.
Oh, very nice.
I just wanted to go. I couldn't afford to bid on anything, but I just wanted to see what it was like. It was fascinating.
Yeah, it's a wild
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
No one here bids on their own thing; they hear by proxy.
Well, there is a lady.
The innuendos are spectacular.
I love the auction scene. I really do. First of all,
Yeah.
the suit that Moore has on,
Crisp.
that
Right.
3-piece
Which is-
gray pinstripe suit.
See, that's what you see Bond. Bond saving the world in a crisp suit. The guy could be falling out of a helicopter, chopped up, beat up, cut up everywhere, and his suit still looks fresh. And then this man's going to go defuse a bomb in a clown suit?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you noticed, Pete, like prior to the clown suit, the lineup of suits that he has on in this movie is
Fresh.
unreal.
Looks good. I always respect a good, well-dressed man in Bond. I do.
Yeah, I personally think this stretch of Moore's films, For Your Eyes Only, this, and View to a Kill, is the best dressed he's ever been in the series.
Mhm.
It's just timeless
I do.
tailoring because it's a 40-year-old movie and it looks great still.
Yeah.
What he's wearing.
It is. I watched I think it was like remastered for today. So the video quality was amazing on Blu-ray. So I had to keep reminding myself this movie was from the 80s. Because there's parts where you'll be watching it, it doesn't even look like it's from the 80s.
Some parts, other parts it does.
Yeah.
Where am I in the notes here? Oh, this is what I wanted to say.
We're getting into point 2.
I mentioned this earlier. I will make a case the most racist part of the movie doesn't even have anything to do with India. It's really quick. The German couple who picks Bond up when he's hitchhiking,
Yeah, that's
they
funny.
are drunk and offering him beer and sausages.
One of the funniest moments of main character gets picked up by friendly strangers.
Isn't that
It's-
more stereotypical than anything in India? It's like they were treating
It's-
everything like a stereotype. Like
Yeah, they are walking DUIs. But
they're
just
like yeah. Isn't like the husband like singing in the back seat or something? It's
Yeah.
so outrageous. I will say, for as dumb as some of the stuff is, and Pete, this is the first time you saw the movie. Were you on the edge of your seat when he's trying to disarm the bomb?
Yeah. In the second half, I noticed that I started to sit forward more. I started to get more engaged with the movie, and I enjoyed it. I really did, and because I think as I said it, man, the second half is a wonderful spy movie, and the pacing feels good. Orlov just kind of died, which was kind of hilarious.
yeah. Well,
Just kind of like fell off the train.
Let's
And I was
let's
like-
talk about the villains then.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anton, please, just begin.
Okay, so what that was so kooky. General Orlov is one of the kookiest villains I've ever seen in a Bond film.
Yeah.
He's just now we always talk about what is the intent of some of these villains. How two-dimensional are they? Do they have nuance? Orlov,
No.
I think he's just a nut job.
Would you say he's the main villain?
He's
I would say Kamal Khan's the main villain, who has more screen time.
But I think Kamal Khan for sure.
Yeah,
definitely
he,
Shao
he
Kahn.
feels like he's
Definitely Shao Kahn.
So this is unique for a Bond film with the two villains. It's only happened once or twice.
it's odd, and it's not. It's weird. Are they maybe they're supposed to be a villain team because maybe they're collaborating because of the smuggling ring, which is also unclear as to why they're smuggling.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I think it is a flaw because like who's the main villain? You want to say Kamal Khan? It's like is he?
I feel like there's multiple things going on in this film that you start to forget what kind of the main point of it all is. So that kind of weakens the villain because there was a certain point where I even forgot, oh, right, he's getting revenge for 009. And And so I feel like if you don't have the stakes clear on like who is being avenged or like what is the full stakes for the world, it turns different characters as who is the proper villain of the story. Because remember, at one point we were all worried about a Fabergé egg.
We were.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, okay, is it safe to talk about the smuggling ring now?
Hold it for the second. I
Got
want
it.
to get through the villains first.
Got it.
Because I want to try to figure them out first. Anton, you were talking about Orlov. You're right. He's basically a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Like, it's very one-dimensional. Not a lot of nuance to him. He just wants to invade Western Europe for his own ego, I guess.
Has his pictures and everything.
He's the general, right? So he's supposedly the highest ranking member in Russia.
He's a general.
He's a general.
So he's a general.
What would you say? It's like implied he's like the commander of the Red Army, right? I think
it makes it seem like he's the guy, but
Right.
it sounds like he's not the guy. It seems like he's a guy that has a bunch of other guys that's decided that he wants to start World War III on his own through not really a very good plan.
he was a fairly well-known actor in the 80s, Steven Berkoff. It is some of the most over-the-top, delightful overacting I've ever seen in a movie. Every single line and movement is exaggerated and it's wonderful to watch.
But he feels German to me. He doesn't feel Russian.
And I think he's British.
Even better.
I think.
Even better.
He probably just missed a few accent coach appointments.
He just didn't show up.
He's introduced. He manages to overact without even saying anything. Like, you remember when
Like when he
Brezhnev
dies.
tells him to sit down? He's just like, he pouts like a kid.
Is he supposed to? Is he trying to emulate like an angry Russian?
I guess.
He looks like a cartoon character the whole time.
Okay, and maybe this is just our portrayal of the Russian generals in the 80s, given our perception of them.
What's hard is
He's
this
the
is a
only
series.
bad one, though.
Yeah, because this series has
True.
been so.
Yeah, true.
What is it? It's been so kind, actually, to portrayals of Russians in the series.
Yes.
I do remember actually when we talked about that.
Now, some context for you, Pete. The guy who's the voice of reason on the Russian side, General Gogol.
Mm.
You know, he is the much more reasonable one. He thinks Orlov's a maniac. He's like, this is absolute madness.
Yeah.
He is a recurring character in many of Moore's films. He is in 6 of the films. So if you were
Got
to
it.
watch
Okay.
Roger Moore's films and continuing into the Timothy Dalton era, he is a major recurring character.
Okay, so that makes more sense.
Right. He'll be in the next couple films after this too. And he is usually portrayed as not an ally, but as a sympathetic character.
Someone that understands, someone that's looking for diplomacy rather than just war all the time.
Definitely, yeah. He is certainly not an antagonist. Getting into the plot a little bit, why is Orlov participating in the smuggling scheme? Like, what does he get out of it?
I would
Unclear.
only say ways to get things across lines that are harder to distribute.
I suppose.
But why? Like, why are you selling Fabergé eggs? Like, why are you moving them out?
Well, the Fabergé eggs have spy equipment in them, don't they?
That's later.
Yeah,
Right.
Q puts that in there.
yeah. So like,
That's right.
why are
It's
why?
like, oh, right, yeah.
That's right.
Like it doesn't. So like, from what I understand it, these are treasures of the Soviet Empire, and they're moving them out of the Soviet Empire.
Well,
They're typically in exchange for money, but I don't think they need the money. So I'm not. It's just unclear. The Blue Octopus is cool though.
do you recognize these actors? Steven Berkoff, Anton. You've seen Beverly Hills Cop. Pete. You never saw Rambo?
The original one.
For the second one. That's the more famous one. He's the Russian bad guy in that.
I have to rewatch them. It's been years. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I've only ever seen the new ones with Sylvester Stallone.
Ugh.
You've never seen the original Rambo?
I don't think so.
The first Rambo is nothing like the rest of the Rambo films.
It's so much more nuanced.
It's actually just like a very dramatic film about PTSD, and
So just start at Rambo 2.
if you want, technically you should start with Rambo 3 if you want like full on dudes throwing knives and shooting guns with knives coming out of the guns.
Is that the one in Afghanistan?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Spectacular. That's what I'm
We're
looking
gonna
for.
cover that one, Anton.
I think First Blood was the one that I saw. I couldn't.
Oh,
there
that's
was
the
just-
first one. That's the original.
And I have seen that one. I've seen the first one. I don't think I've seen the second or third one.
The first one is Rambo's running a rampage through, what was it, like,
I think Colorado.
yeah, like suburbs of Colorado, because he's having an episode. This whole film is him having an episode.
They drew first blood.
Sylvester Stallone.
We're gonna cover some Stallone movie. Have we covered a Stallone movie yet?
We haven't. Legendary Frank Stallone.
Frank.
There's your first blood. All right. The other villain in the film, you could argue Kamal Khan is the main villain, although I don't. I would need to be convinced, other than he has the most screen time.
Yeah.
He is. I think his acting's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Louis Jourdan. He's suave and sinister. He's a good foil to Roger Moore. Can one of you or both of you please explain what is his motivation?
Mahjong. Just Mahjong. I don't get it.
Nope.
So he's an exiled Afghan prince that's smuggling goods in and out for Octopussy, the organization. Maybe money?
But
Wait.
then at the end of the movie, he reveals he can print his own money. Remember, he has the plates.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, we can just print our own." It's like, okay, so
I mean, maybe they didn't know about that at the time that they were smuggling.
He was just
Good.
also very ambiguous bad guy. But I did
He was like middle management in a way.
Yeah, but I did love having him set up as I'm kind of like you, Bond. I can wear a suit too. I'm pretty cool. I got money.
I have a picture of myself in my office.
Joe's cheating.
Here's the even bigger question, though. What does he have to gain by detonating a nuclear bomb on an American Air Force base? Because he's all in on this plan.
I still don't understand.
It's not clear.
Because he's still living in India, no?
He goes back to India, yeah.
So if he's living in India, what is he going to do when the Russians conquer Europe?
I would assume a third world war would also interrupt his smuggling plans, too. It's like...
It would be marginal, maybe slightly disruptive to your overall supply chain.
This is a movie that needed one villain. I've never understood the two villain thing, and it really I couldn't like figure this out in the research, but it seems like they took two scripts and just mashed them together.
You want to know why Kamal Khan is the main villain? Because he had a henchman.
He did have a henchman, Gobinda,
the Sikh man.
Super cool.
Yeah, Gobinda. He was down. I liked him.
At what point did you realize he wasn't mute and he could speak? Because he doesn't speak for a while.
I don't remember because I just assumed he wouldn't talk the entire movie. I thought that was his character.
I also don't remember, but this was another Venture Bros reference from season 1, the Gobinda type.
Yes. The turban.
You expect him to fight with Brock Sampson the whole episode, but then when it comes down to it, he's just like he reveals he can speak. He's like, "Look, I don't get paid enough for this. I'm gone."
Maybe he was waiting. He was waiting for the check to cash, making sure it didn't bounce.
Couple notes on Kamal Khan. I love how into the hunting Bond and the safari he is. He's just delighted.
The most dangerous game.
The whole time. Remember, he's like, "Let the sport commence!" Right at the beginning.
You've done this before, right? I thought you were just playing Mahjong.
Oh my god.
Or I texted this to you, Anton, because I wanted you to like take note of this. How delighted he is at the end when he thinks Bond falls off the plane. He's he is cracking up with Gobinda.
Which is fun, which is funny.
Oh yeah.
It's a great little detail.
I love his huge checkbook that he has after he loses at backgammon.
Certified checks.
Yeah.
Where
Pete,
did you get that
checks
from?
that big? Like the giant checks?
What? Like for like businesses? Like where? Like, but I guess bigger check, more money. You know, he's wealthier.
One of my favorite gags is after he's done writing out the check, Bond just says, "I prefer cash."
Yes. Spend the money quickly, Mr. Bond. I intend to.
Yeah.
Is he doing that?
I like when Bond asks Gobinda if he wants a nightcap.
Yes. He goes, I guess not.
No. He's like, no. So the character Octopussy. First, she's a villain, sort of, right? She's presented as a villain.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see the face, kind of like Blofeld, like we were talking about. She doesn't become a character until an hour in the film. Over an hour into the film.
Yes. And what is she doing there?
It's not, I don't think it's explained well because it's presented in the first hour like Kamal Khan works for her.
Yeah. Is she the head of the smuggling ring?
Yes.
And what are her motivations for running a smuggling ring?
Making enough to put outfits on her on all of the women in her crew, the red jumpsuits.
Weird. The incredible outfits.
Gotta fund those.
Very odd. I don't understand that. So, okay, so she's running she's the head of a smuggling ring that doesn't need to exist.
It's her circus. She owns the circus too.
So presumably she's laundering money through
right. That's the front for the smuggling.
Well, no, she's diversified her sources of income. That's what she's done.
There you go. Right.
Got it. So she's diversified her sources of income. simultaneously, a crazy Russian general is partnering with a guy that works for her to start World War III under the premise of a false flag attack of a nuclear bomb blowing up in Europe. And somehow the two intersect, and we don't know why, because they don't need to work together. They just happen to be working together.
I suppose.
Okay, I buy it. I buy it.
Then you got the character of Magda, who I've seen this movie probably 20 or 30 times. I still don't know who she actually works for, because the first half of the film, she is Kamal Khan's companion.
She have a lady.
She's working for him, but then she's also really working for Octopussy. She's an employee of the circus.
She's
And then-
diversified her investments.
At the end of the movie, she is participating in the raid on Kamal's palace, but she's also not in on the bomb plot. None of this is clear.
It's weird, man. I think you're right, Pat. I feel like they just took different scripts and smashed them together, and they're like, this guy gone. The hench girl, yeah, she's in, but we don't know who she works for.
It's like, well, which villain should we keep? Keep them all.
Yeah.
Just leave them all in there.
Just do it. It'll be fun.
Yeah,
And let's call it Octopussy.
Let the audience figure out who's the bad guy.
And I've got a wild idea. Instead of one knife-throwing circus performer, we'll have two, and they'll be twins.
Yes, Mishka and Grishka.
They're pretty cool. They're very original
Yeah.
for the time.
I did like it. They were cool. The beginning scene with them was pretty cool.
If you're not ready for it, you're like, whoa, there's two of them.
Yeah, it was
Mhm.
cool. I enjoyed it. I did. It was a good way for it to start.
And then we get Yo-Yo Saw.
Wild. Very seems like a terrible way to die, but very unclear how effective that weapon is.
Yeah, seems like a terrible weapon in general.
Yeah.
I have questions about how the physics work.
Yeah, it seems
Because
like
the yo-yo will come back.
Right. It can also cut horizontally through doors.
okay.
It is unique, though. I've never really seen anything else like it in a movie.
So the closest I've ever seen is a flying guillotine.
Whoa. In what movie?
36 Chambers of Shaolin versus flying guillotine.
What about, remember the throwing disc from Predator 2?
Oh yeah,
Sick.
see that.
All right,
It's-
we were already starting to talk about the plot, because I think this is where you could criticize the movie the most. The pre-title sequence is unconnected to the rest of the film. That was pretty much the last time it would ever happen in the series until Casino Royale. Most of the time, the pre-title sequences have something more or less to do with the plot of the film. Pete, how surprised were you by the horse trailer turning into a jet gag?
Wild. And the jet. And I just read your note that was a real thing.
Yeah.
That was the sickest sequence ever. Now, I think it's a little unrealistic of flying it through a barn, but I was on board. Why
I
not?
don't know, it's small enough where you could do it.
I think it was cool, man. I enjoyed it. I wrote some stuff down for the rating. I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. I don't know if it would have been what I would have picked if I was a spy agency, but you know what? It's a movie, so you go with it.
A BD-5J Acrostar. It's a real jet.
That's cool.
The reveal was to me kind of the funniest part. It's like it's not actually a horse. Here's half of a horse. It's a jet.
What?
And I'm like, of course it is.
Of course. Why not?
The only thing that would have made it better would have been an Aston Martin, like an old school DB7.
How would he have gotten out of Cuba in an Aston Martin?
Fill her up, please.
Fill her up, please. Where
Fill
did he
her up.
land? Because the guy
Close
with
to
the
the gas
beaker,
station.
it's implied to be the American South. I think they were going for that.
No way, that tiny Agrostar jet's making it.
No, of course not. The gas tank's probably the size of like a milk carton.
No way he's making it back to the Americas.
Made it to Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah. Fill her up, please.
So we get into, after the pre-title sequence, we get the title sequence with the title song. Not my favorite song. A little slow.
Wasn't a fan of it.
No. I like the melody, which is used during the score. I like that quite a bit.
They could have done better. It didn't set it up as
I
much as I
agree.
thought it was going to be a Bond movie.
They would make up for it in the next film. Then we get to East Berlin Cold War shit. Look, I'm not an MI6 agent, but if I was getting chased in the woods and running for my life and I was wearing a clown suit, I would probably ditch the shoes.
And the balloon.
And the balloons.
Yeah. You probably don't want to be seen.
Yeah, definitely don't need the balloons. That one's excessive.
Imagine the tracks those shoes would leave.
Imagine how hard it would be to just walk over a branch.
Yeah.
Valid criticism.
Yeah. He gets the job done, though. He gets to the ambassador's house with a knife in his back.
And then he's dead.
Yeah.
They never establish if sequentially, if you're going up with your 00 number designation, how experienced you are. One could just assume 009 is maybe a bit more novice to the scene.
Could
I think
be.
that's fair. First mission, maybe. First field
Got
operation.
stuck with a clown mission.
To be fair,
You're gonna dress up as a clown, and we're gonna put you in a smuggling ring that we're not really sure what they do and why.
Oh my god, that's their form of like that's their form of hazing. They're like, dude, he died. Like what? We gave him the easiest mission in the world. He died?
And he's
Yeah.
he's not in. He's not gonna make it.
He
It's
got
clear.
a knife thrown into him. Oh my god.
Like-
all he had to do
He's
was
got-
just see what it was like to work at a circus for a week.
Okay.
Okay,
Make him like 007.
Right? Like
Pete, you're one of the smartest people I know. You have a master's degree. Explain the smuggling operation to me again. Go.
okay. So head of Octopussy is a lady that is somehow deciding that she wants to smuggle precious artifacts out of the Soviet Empire to the West for what we can only assume would be money.
Right.
They don't really need the money. She takes that money that she supposedly made and diversified it into a circus. That's one chain. The second chain is a rogue Russian general who seems to defy the consistently diplomatic Russian general, which I think tracks. His plan is to have America accidentally detonate a nuclear bomb on a train.
I don't know. That's the smuggling operation. Whoa.
So then he decides to hire the guy playing Mahjong, who's an ex-Afghani prince with that diplomatic tie. Let's just assume that's fiction. We don't really know what he does, and he's also a member of the most dangerous game. And ultimately speaking, the plan is for everyone to just allow unfettered conquest of Europe. And James Bond is supposed to stop that in multiple disguises.
Anton, you want to take a crack at this?
No.
Okay.
It's way too hard.
I think I just feel like they could have been like, hey,
Yeah.
Russia just wants to do some bad stuff, and I would have been hooked, right? The smuggling operation, I'm not really. I feel like they just needed a reason to say Octopussy without saying that they were cringeworthy, so they had to tie it to the short story somehow. Which you mentioned.
This would become a recurring thing in a lot of the Bond movies where Bond starts off the movie investigating something relatively simple and he stumbles into this like gigantic world shaking event. Anton, I'm thinking, especially in the next movie, A View to a Kill, where he starts investigating what's essentially like horse racing stuff
Mm-hmm.
involving microchips, and it turns into something else that I won't spoil for Pete. Pete, if
But
we
it-
haven't got you hooked on A View to a Kill at this point, I don't know what will.
I literally wrote it down. Like I'm gonna watch it again. Like I'm going to watch it after this one. But like,
I
is
have
that
no
what it's supposed to
idea
be?
how the bomb plot has anything to do with jewelry smuggling. Because if you think about it, like Orlov wants to smuggle a bomb into Western Germany, right?
Yeah,
He could just smuggle a bomb into Western Germany. He doesn't need the circus to do that,
yeah.
right? Like,
Right.
He doesn't. I don't know. It's odd for me, man. And also, the major that was her dad. Is that guy? Has that guy ever been in any other Bond movie?
no,
Is that like
no. But I'm glad you brought that up.
what?
Okay, that is
So random.
is the plot to the short story Octopussy.
Got
So
it. Okay.
This film is more or less a sequel to that, even though it's not. You don't really realize it.
I feel like there was a segment of that movie that was based on that story, and they just wanted to use the title, and they were like, "Nah, let's just keep it all in there and put this Russian guy in there too." It just they could have done more with less.
Pete, I have a finance question for you now.
Okay.
And they're playing backgammon, and Bond stakes the Fabergé egg. How much do you think 200,000 rupees was in 1983?
10 grand?
It's about 20. So he was kind of overpaying with the egg.
No wonder MI6 went broke.
Well, Bond actually helped to inflate the cost of that egg on the market.
He did. He
did.
did. One would call that market manipulation.
So they call that nowadays eBay fraud.
Bidding on your own. Wait, so Orlov smashes the real egg, right? That is the real egg that Bond takes back to India with the little microchip in it, right? The little tracker?
So that was really, really confusing to figure out
I
because even Kamal Khan like winced as he hit the egg.
Right.
Yeah, it was the real egg, right? Because he
Right.
said, "We're done with this. There's no need for this," and then smashed it. So we went through all of that for what reason?
And
But
even that
then-
didn't make sense. He's like, this fake has caused enough distraction. It's like, why would you smash it? His whole
Yeah.
plan is they're taking the real stuff out of Russia and replacing it with fake ones. So why would Orlov destroy the what? I don't know. It's just
It was really confusing.
I don't.
It's a weird plot. It's a weird plot.
It's
Like-
it's really none of it makes sense.
Like they could have just been like, Orlov wants to start a war in Western Germany, and he's going to detonate a false flag nuclear bomb, and that's it. I would have been like, okay, that's cool. But what do you name the movie if Octopussy's not in it?
I mean, it's not the best title.
But it's shock value.
It is a memorable
Yeah.
title.
Well, what it's you take part of an animal and then a body part.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that works.
That's what they did.
Leopard. So leopard ass.
The sequel to Octopussy.
Oh my gosh. Squid Game. What?
What?
Huh?
They're making a new one, I think, too.
They sure are.
Yeah.
I really do like the backgammon scene though. When Bond no look rolls the dice, he's like double six.
I loved
Fancy
it.
that.
I love it. Double
It-
sixes.
It wasn't his normal game that he would play, but
That's why I kind of like it. It was something
Yeah.
different. I've
Yeah.
never seen backgammon in a casino.
No.
yeah, neither have I. We talked about this before the recording. Like, do people gamble with backgammon? But you know what? People gamble with everything nowadays.
Tons
so-
of money, dude.
Yeah.
Tons of money on backgammon.
I want to see Bond get into a situation where he has to play like Yahtzee or Monopoly.
Or he has to hit like a 6-leg parlay. Like
I'll
in
give you
Uncut
the
Gems.
nuclear codes if you can tell me the over-under on these 6 NFL games.
I'd actually love that.
Boardwalk, is that a good property?
I think I'm more of a Baltic Avenue man myself. Some say if you control the infrastructure, you control everything.
Well, if you ever watch Never Say Never Again, Pete, which it sounds like you're going to because you're going to watch all the Bond movies, Bond plays a video game.
What game?
Yeah.
Fallout 4.
It's called Domination. It's invented by the bad guy of the film. The special effects involved are a little shoddy,
Okay, that's fair.
and the rules of the game, Anton, I remember like weren't that clear, but
Mm-mm. But
It's a
the
learning
effects
experience.
were. It looks like a full like. It's not even like an arcade cabinet. It just looks like this futuristic video game machine with like a massive screen.
was it like a projection?
Yeah, it was like
thing?
like a 3D projection almost.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I love it. Back in the day.
Yeah. So, question for you both. You're not going to be able to answer this. Why does
boy.
Bond, or why does Kamal Khan capture Bond at all? Like, what's the point? What does he need him for?
To bring
Well,
him to dinner.
He's like, well, we don't have all the answers. It's like, to what? You got the egg. What do you?
To bring him to dinner. To
Mm.
give him sheep's head.
I was gonna
rice.
say to
Souffle?
interrogate him.
Can't wait.
just to interrogate him to see if he knows anything.
About the smuggling ring that doesn't make sense that is aiding and abetting World War III.
Yeah, or just to feed him. Maybe that's it. He just really wants to feed him.
I mean, when you got sheep's head, you got to share it, right?
Very much similar to Temple of Doom, Anton, what they were serving.
Right.
Chill the monkey brains. So I have to point this out because I only know this because of I've read Tom Clancy. The
Fake
plan
news.
hinges on everyone incorrectly assuming that it was an American bomb that accidentally went off, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would not work in real life. The military are able to tell which bombs are which. They have technology that can tell them exactly where the plutonium came from. I'm talking super specific. Like they can tell you which part of which reactor plutonium comes from.
Is that because of the carbon dating?
It's similar to that. It's sort of like any mineral. It has a chemical composition. And you can see where it was mined from.
Okay, got
And
it.
different
That makes
kinds of
sense.
plutonium come from different kinds of the world, or uranium, whatever they're using. And they'll be able to tell that the weapon was Soviet, that this plan would never work.
So, is there a way to use that same technology to determine if these drones outside of Jersey are, like,
Maybe.
yeah,
Aliens.
They're looking for something.
Are they looking for that lost nuclear bomb that Orlov tried to detonate?
they're looking for that octopussy?
Also about Orlov's plan. So he thinks that if they explode a bomb in Western Europe, NATO will demand like disarmament, and then he can just invade Western Europe because it'll be like quote unquote undefended.
That's what I thought. Like,
But
it's not like Age of Empires where you like send all of your guys to go protect your main base.
this is the other part of the plan too that doesn't make sense. He's not the decision maker on the Politburo. Like, what if the rest of the Politburo were like, no, we're not invading Western Europe? Like, what was his plan for that?
But also, like, what happens when they come back? Like, what happens when the army that supposedly left to go check out the nuclear bomb comes back and you're just hanging out in their house? Like, hey, we occupied you. No, we tried this like 20 years ago and it didn't work.
None of it. It
Let's just say it made sense.
I mean, Anton, is like your objective here. Is there anything about the story that makes sense?
No, but
Clown costume.
but if we go, and I feel like that's where, despite despite the lack of cohesive story, this is a film built more on moments than on proper story structure, because moments within each kind of individual storyline are really fun, whether it's Bond's fighting for his life on a train. Wait, why should I care about that? How did we get here?
Love that
Or
part.
Magda stealing the Fabergé egg.
Yeah, like, oh, cool, that, or Bond's in an auction house. So none of it all really connects and tracks cohesively,
It's like good
But-
scenes.
but it's good scenes. It's very entertaining.
Hmm.
It would have been elevated. It would have been better if there was just a proper story structure.
I think it could have been improved by having more Octopussy in the film. I really liked her character, and she's not used much. I like Maude
No.
Adams in the role. I think she has great chemistry with Roger Moore. It's a more age appropriate relationship too.
Yeah, it's a lost opportunity for a very cool female villain.
Yeah.
Someone like leading an organization, almost like female Blofeld, but also empowers people in some regard. It could have been cool.
She starts off the film. You think she's like this really powerful, intelligent character, and I feel like the poor writing kind of undermines her a little bit because like. So Kamal hires those thugs to attack her palace, right? It never
Mhm.
occurs to her to figure out who sent them.
No. Even though she's run, at this point, probably a significantly large global smuggling ring.
Also, why does Bond fake his death after the crocodile submarine? He just lets Octopussy think he's dead. Like it doesn't make sense.
Trauma.
Does that count as a disguise, the crocodile submarine?
Sure.
Yeah, I would call it more a gadget than anything.
Yeah,
I think
that's fair.
it falls under Q's department.
That's true. That's a really good point.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right. I'm wrong. Why was Q doing field work too? He's like staking out the path. Doesn't make sense.
Q's gotten real bored. He's like,
Q
come
also-
on, give me
Q
some
found VJ, didn't
assignments.
Yeah, Q's lucky. He almost got killed. If he had been there like
Yep.
5 more minutes.
He
Yeah.
almost got.
Yeah.
Yeah, did. I agree with you. Q's always in the lab. Q's not a fieldwork kind of guy. We all know that.
You'd
Like-
think.
You go to Bond, you know Q's in the lab. That's what you're getting. Q is the guy in the chair.
So something I noticed recently, biggest plot hole in the film. It's not obvious at first, but hear me out here. It's pretty funny. When Bond meets up with M in Berlin, M tells him, "We confirmed the Octopussy Circus was in Berlin when 009 was killed." It's like, wait, that's how you made the circus connection? Not because 009 turned up dead in a goddamn clown suit?
We know.
You'd think if one of your agents turns up dead in a clown suit, the first thing you're going to try to identify is like, why was he wearing a clown suit?
Legit. Don't even worry about it. It's his disguise. Everyone had disguises.
You're right, Anton, though. This is all about spectacle. It does have some really good set pieces. Like, I think if you ignore the plot, which is a big ask, you mentioned the train sequence. That's probably my favorite part of the film. The whole
Yeah.
bit on the train
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
what's technically supposed to be Germany. It's great.
Yep, high stakes, lots of great stunts, super fun.
Driving a car on the train tracks, which is possible because Top Gear proved you could do it. It's possible. Anton, we have a new M in this film,
Yes, we do.
played by Robert Brown.
Is he referred to directly as M?
He is. He's a
Yeah.
new M.
Yeah.
Now, is he the same M as Bernard Lee? It's not clear. I don't think he
Mhm.
is supposed to be the same M, but they never say it explicitly. We have some other MI6 employees too. I like the art guy, Jim Fanning.
He's
Yeah, not James, Jim.
Jim.
There can only be one James.
any relation to the Dakota Fanning?
Well, he's the character's name, so probably not, Pete.
Got it. Sorry, I thought I didn't know who Jim Fanning was. I was like,
No. He's the art guy who Bond goes to the auction with.
got it. Okay.
Yeah, with the bow tie.
The one who just looks really annoyed as Bond makes all the
Where
faux
he makes
pas.
the-
So he's like,
You're gonna be stuck with it.
We're going to see how bad he wants it now.
that's such a great scene. Let's see how badly he wants it. Smithers is a character in this film, Anton. I don't know if you
Mhm.
read my note on this. Played by an actor named Jeremy Bulloch, who also played Boba Fett in the original Star
Yeah.
Wars.
He it was always a reminder for me when you look at the behind the scenes of Star Wars and you see Boba Fett take off his helmet, and you're like, yeah, he looks cool with a helmet on.
We talked about VJ. All right, next reason why this wasn't better. I want to talk about the ending of this film because I think this is probably the biggest weakness of the film.
Mm-hmm.
We get a great climax when Bond disarms the bomb, but this creates a problem. Number one, the film peaks here. It's literally the climax of the film. He
Yeah, it should've
prevents
been
World
ended.
War III. He defuses a nuclear
Yep.
bomb. Number 2, there's almost 20 minutes left in the film. And number 3, the 20 minutes that follow this film, in my opinion, are a complete letdown.
Yeah, it's just not cool. Nothing really awesome happens.
It's wrapping up the story.
Really bad looking fake set.
Now, a good story should have like a denouement. Things should unravel a bit, but already the pacing on this in this movie is kind of all over the place. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
closing after, clown world saving
It's hard.
it's already hard to just wrap it up.
Yeah. That should have been your last scene. Like, it should have been, like, diffused, and that's it. Just ended the movie.
Again, nothing in the research verified this, but I really get the feeling that the raid on Kamal's palace and the plane sequence was tacked on. It really felt
Mhm.
like they wanted to end the film when he defuses the bomb, and they were probably like, this isn't a quote-unquote big enough ending, and we don't know what to do with Kamal Khan. Let's just add this. The set looks terrible. It's artificial lighting. It looks like
Delete
they're at Epcot again, and then you have the octopus circus troupe like beating up the palace guards. It's just it's really silly.
You get a few Call of Duty first person shooter views
Yes.
as what he's taking out people, which is actually kind of cool. You don't usually get shots
During
like
the
that
time.
in a film.
Yeah. I think Doom was, like, one of the first movies to do it, and I remember seeing it.
I mean, we do get the really cool thing where he slides down the banister and just like guns all the guys down with the AK. Like that's cool.
Spy stuff.
Yeah.
I have to hope that, or I would think that actually takes a lot of inspiration from Hong Kong cinema, right?
It's possible.
Just like,
I don't know. Where do you think the inspiration came, Anton, for Q wearing a World War I pilot's hat while piloting in a hot air balloon?
The inspiration is definitely LSD.
Oh, yeah. Octopussy also gets duped really easily by Kamal. He's like, I was going to bring you the money things. And she's like, maybe? And she just gets knocked out. It's bad. The whole thing's bad.
Yeah, bad writing, man. Does not set up these characters well.
And then my question for you both, because I think Pete knows more about planes than I do. How does Kamal Khan's plane crash?
I'm not really sure.
He like puts his foot on the flap and it just breaks the whole plane.
I mean, I'm just gonna assume one of the engines failed, or
Only
I'm not gonna-
Bond takes out the one engine, but I just don't know how the plane crashes.
It's unclear. I've put that into the unclear but accept bucket.
Potentially the funniest thing in the film, in my opinion, which is Louis Jourdan's pantomiming as the plane is going down. He's like,
Orlov does that at one point too.
Orlov is overacting. Yeah, man, in the back of the car when he's telling
Yeah.
the driver where to go, he's like,
Like, what do you do? Why are you doing that? You could definitely put sound in here.
Most big villain Bond demises are they're always like kind of the biggest moments after the climax, or maybe it is the climax. So having multiple villains kind of go out in memorable ways also is confusing.
it's just such a lame. The final 15 minutes of this movie are just so lame.
It's a sprint.
I don't know, but is it sorry, is it what's lamer, like the Drax being flung into space in Moonraker?
Well, that's just funny. He's like, he turns into a doll.
The doll. That has to be my favorite. Just this is so silly.
Oh,
Yeah,
I mean,
that was bad.
Moonraker
That was
is
bad.
just Moonraker is
That
full
was
of
bad.
wonder.
Yeah,
No, you're right. Well, I mean, at least that whole sequence is memorable. Like this is just kind of dumb. Also, you notice
Yeah.
when they start the raid on the palace, it's the middle of the night, and by the time the plane takes off, it's like high noon.
there's no way they spent that much time there.
All right, last reason, just random thoughts about the production. We talked about the title song. I do like the score. It's not one of Barry's better scores, though, in my opinion. Like the score's fine.
It's okay.
Not the best looking sets.
Yeah, it's not the best looking sets, and I feel like there's definitely a bit of this that looks a bit dated.
Well, Anton, I told you to watch out for this when we started with Fear Eyes Only. Are you seeing it now? Like a lot of the interior stuff in the 80s Bond it's TV quality.
Yeah, and it's not only that, but a lot of the costumes, other than Bond's outfit, really, like, people don't look dressed well, right?
He had all the wardrobe budget.
They spent
Yeah.
the money on him.
It really did feel like you said, TV quality or B movie quality.
Yeah. Well, it probably doesn't surprise you both. He used his own tailor for his suits. I mean, it wasn't even like costumes for the film. Like these were his suits. Roger Moore's. Yeah. Anton, you called out the pacing. This is 130 minutes long. It takes a long time to get to Germany. They spend a lot of time in India. It's some of the pacing. It's tough.
Yeah, it's not cut together well, but it keeps you in it with those moments in the film that are exciting, but exciting without actually necessarily moving the plot forward or without keeping it riveting. Like I love the auction house scene, but to get there a little slow.
I think it just would have been better if it was closer to 110 minutes. If there was just a couple minutes cut out here. If you end up with a film that's 20 minutes shorter, it's probably better off.
Probably.
It's just some notes I took too. He does not use a PPK in this film. It is
Just
a
the
Walther P5. So Bond's a really good shot in this film. It's a couple of the in the beginning of the train sequence, he is capping people left and right.
Headshots everywhere.
Yeah. Our Seiko spot here, Anton, is a G757 Sports 100, and then he's also wearing the TV watch, which that would have been science fiction in 1983. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it is super sick.
Do either of you have anything to add before we wrap this up?
So, just in general, I keep thinking about that statement that you made around these Bond films not looking as great as the previous ones, and it's so true. Like the Connery films,
You're saying
it's just so. Yeah, and it's a bummer because, well, it's a bummer, but at the same time, I still kind of take it at face value of just this is the campiness, this is the tone, but I don't think it takes away from it from being entertaining. I still find it very entertaining.
I agree. It just is interesting how you would just think the stuff from 20 years later would be filmed better, and I don't know that it is, and I don't know if it was the talent behind the camera. I don't think the director of photography who worked on the 80s stuff was as good as the ones in the 60s. Remember, I'm specifically remembering something the three of us talked about on You Only Live Twice. Like the guy that shot that, Freddie Young, like he filmed Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago. You know what I mean? Like,
and it looked really good.
It looked awesome.
Really good.
The guy that filmed this, look, nothing against him, but I don't think he's as good. I don't think the quality of film they were using is as good. And Pete, this is something I've mentioned to Anton on the last episode. After Moonraker, the studio became obsessed with cutting costs on all these films, and I think they were cutting corners with a lot of the sets and the lighting. And you can tell, you can.
Yeah, and I mean, any movie series is going to do that, right? They're going to do the best they can, especially when they start to lose their way. And Bond has been a franchise that's been around for 25 movies.
Yeah. And especially by the 1980s, inflation was starting to hit the film industry quite hard. It was a lot more expensive to make a film than it had been, in the 60s, 50s. I mean, it makes sense, but
yeah,
the cost of filming these things, the budget started to climb, and the return on investment, which you'll see in the 80s, starting with For Your Eyes Only, the films began to make progressively less and less money. And you can see that translate on screen in some ways. But we talked about the tone, the villains, the plot, the ending, some thoughts on the production. Let's wrap it up and give our ratings. Peter, as the guest, you have the opportunity to go first if you'd like.
I will go first. So everyone already knows that I'm seeing these Bond movies. This is my first Roger Moore movie, and in my opinion, and I know this maybe people won't like it, but my opinion, Daniel Craig is like the Bond where I anchor to, right? I think Roger Moore as a Bond made me feel like that was Daniel Craig. It made me feel like a secret agent. I think when I go into a Bond movie, I'm looking for gadgets, action, global events, high stakes, and cars and Bond girls, right? That's what you're looking for. I think the movie delivered on that. It was a little cheesy at points. And overall, viewed in isolation, as a movie, I really enjoyed it. So I gave it a B. I enjoyed it. I had a really good time watching it. I understand a lot of it was cheesy, but I enjoyed it.
Nice.
Better than I thought you'd give it.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of fun watching it. I did. I had more fun watching this one than the other one.
Oh, Diamonds Are Forever?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah.
That's low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Anton, I'll go first here if you don't mind. I've seen this movie a lot. This is the first time I was really analyzing it, though, and I have to say I came away liking it less than I used to. I think I was overlooking a lot of the plot problems before. This does have a lot of ingredients that I like, but some of it's just the dumb moments in this film are really dumb, like almost to the point of parody. Like some of the lowest points in the series are in this film. A lot of the stuff in the tuk tuk chase, the safari sequence, like the Tarzan yell, like you don't have to do that in the movie. Like, why did Bond need to be in a gorilla suit and a clown suit within 15 minutes? Like, you don't have to do that stuff. The plot is really bad. It's needlessly complicated. Nothing about it holds up. It's probably too long by 20 minutes. I thought the pacing was real slow in parts. The villains are hard to take seriously, although they are entertaining. On the other hand, the stakes are high. The Cold War stuff is great once it gets going. There's good set pieces that has a lot of tension to them. And I do think Roger Moore is excellent in his penultimate film. And I think he's got great chemistry with Maud Adams. Octopussy is not his best work. It may be the most representative of his era. And that's why at the top of this episode, I said this is the most Roger Moore film. And I think I stand by that. The main issue is that it was just all starting to look a little long in the tooth by 1983. It's mid-tier Bond for me. I'm going to give this a C. You could maybe talk me into a C+ on a good day, but for now it's a C.
Okay.
Octopussy has a lot of fun moments in it, and I have to just stand by my statement earlier in the episode that it's a very entertaining movie, but it's not a very well-paced movie. It's not a very well-written movie, but despite it, it's very entertaining. Even its faults actually emphasize how entertaining it is because of things like really bad costumes or just very questionable story choices or overacting. While in some movies, that just throws it into the bin of this is going to be just reviewed by Mystery Science Theater. In this case, you have a really strong performance by Roger Moore that ties it all together that really does save the movie. And I find it that much more endearing because despite it all, you still have yourself a Bond adventure. So that's what makes these kind of movies special. And it's why Roger Moore is such a strong, fantastic Bond, because he's able to embrace his qualities that make him his best version of Bond, which is this very comedic, welcoming, approachable gentleman that is also able to take you on an adventure, and when it is needed, turn up the dramatics a bit. So I feel like we got that in this film. It's not my favorite Bond film, but I do agree with Pat. It's a very mid-tier Bond film. So I also put it at a C.
Harsh.
I thought we were fair.
I know.
Yeah.
I do think you're fair. And remember, I'm seeing it. You have the ability to say mid-tier Bond films because you've seen more of them than I have, right? This is the only Roger Moore one I've seen.
Right. Yeah, it'll... I have a feeling you would lower your rating, but I'm not asking you to if you saw more. But you know what? No, you like what you like.
Well, in December of next year, I'll send you an email with all of my updated ratings.
I look forward to it. Anton, we got 2 Bond movies in 83. I don't put this above or below Never Say Never Again. It's like 2 pretty average movies.
Yeah. If anything, Never Say Never Again. Maybe like if you had a choice of like, oh, you can either see the premiere for Never Say Never Again or Octopussy, I would say Never Say Never Again.
I think Octopussy is more entertaining, but Never Say Never Again is a more interesting film.
Right. Like I would be in the camp of I want to see Sean Connery again.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that is it for Octopussy. Peter, always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. Excited to be... Let's just say I'm excited to continue my Bond adventure.
I love
Excellent.
it. I love
And
it.
you had fun with this one.
This was awesome. I enjoyed it. I did. And I know it's unpopular. I'm excited to see the next one.
Yeah, well, as always, we enjoyed having you on. Can't wait till the next episode.
Thank you guys. Much appreciated.
I believe that's going to be an animated film, which we have teased many times.
We'll find out soon.
Yeah. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give us a follow and a 5-star review. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. As always, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. For those who would like to support us directly, we have a Patreon. Links are in the description. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.